Good morning everyone. Let us continue with the next topic in Java programming. Okay, so that is classes, objects and methods. Okay, so coming to the class. So what is class? I already explained in OOPS concepts. Whenever I explained in OOPS concepts, I explained class and objects. Okay, so but in those concepts, just I explained what is class and what is objects. So in these concepts, I am explaining briefly. So what is class? What is the syntax of class? Okay, so what is object? How we have to create a object in Java? Okay, so what is method? What is the basic syntax for declaring method? Okay, so in these concepts, I will explain briefly one by one. So what is class? Okay, so coming to the class. So what is class? I hope everyone know the class definition. Okay, so what is class? Okay, so class is a keyword. Okay, class is a non-primitive data type. Okay, class is a non-primitive data type. In Java, data types can be classified into two types, primitive and non-primitive. Primitive means basic data types, integer and floating point data types. Okay, so coming to the non-primitive data types, class, interface, array, these three are non-primitive data types. So in these, class is one of the non-primitive data types. Okay, so class is a non-primitive data type. Okay, so that contains member variables. Member variables. Member variables is nothing but a data part of the application. Member variable is nothing but a data part of the applications. Okay, so data, member variables, properties, both are same. Okay, so we can call as any name like your name. Okay, so we can call as any name. Member variables, data. Okay, so our properties. Okay, so class contains data and methods. Okay, simply we can say as class is a structure and representing data and its related functions. Okay, so here it contains member variables, data and member functions. Member functions means methods. Simply class contains data and methods. Okay, simply class contains data and methods. Okay, so class contains two parts. First one is data, second one is methods. Okay, so that operates on the variable. That operates on the variable or that operates on the data. Okay, so for example, I can take one class. Okay, so here I am taking person as the class. Okay, so in this person class, so what is the data of person class? Okay, so person name, person age, person gender. Okay, so these all are data or variables of person class. So what are the methods? What are the functions of person class? Okay, so read, write, walk, eat. Okay, so these all are okay, so name, age, gender, read, write and walk. Okay, so coming to the person object. So what are the data members of person object? Name, age, gender. Okay, so coming to the functions, what are the functions of person object? Read, write, walk, eat and so on. Okay, so simply class contains data and methods. Okay, so that operate on a variable. Okay, so that operate on a variable. Okay, class contains two parts, data and methods that operate on variable. Okay, so here I taken one class, that is person. So name, age, gender, these all are data or variables of person class. What are the functions of person class? Read, write, walk, eat. Okay, these all are functions of person class. Okay, so simply class is a so simply class contains data and so methods. Simply class contains data and methods that operate on a variable. Okay, so class is a non-primitive data type. Class contains only two parts. Okay, data. So data means it is also known as member variables or methods. Methods means member functions. Okay, so that operate on variable. Okay, so a class is declared by use of class keyword. Okay, so class is a keyword. So whenever we want to define a class in our Java programming, class is a keyword. First letter should start with lowercase letter. So the general form of class definition is as follows. So what is the syntax of defining class? Okay, so class definition starts with class keyword. Here class is the keyword. Class definition starts with class keyword and followed by class name. Here we have to write a class name. So after class definition we can open the curly brace. At the end of the program we can close curly braces. So what class contains? Class contains only member variables and member functions. Variables and functions. So variables we can call as data, member functions we can call as methods. Okay, so class contains only two parts, data and methods. Data or variables, both are same. Okay, so here I am declaring variables. Okay, so what is the syntax for declaring variable? Data type space variable name. Data type space variable name. So here data type. Okay, so instance variable 1. Why I am declaring instance variable? Okay, so what is instance variable? Any variable can be defined within the class. Within the class can be called as instance variable. Okay, so those variables we can declare within a class, simply we called as instance variables. Okay, so data type instance variable 1, data type instance variable 2 and so on. Okay, so declaring the variables is based on our programming. Okay, so we want to develop one program based on the requirement. So we want to define the variables. Okay, so here and so on. Okay, so here and so on, data type instance variable n. Okay, so next one. Okay, so the variables part is completed. Okay, so class contains two parts, data or variables, data or variables. Okay, next part is functions or methods. Functions or methods. Okay, so here, okay, so we have completed, okay, so data or variables part in our class definition. Okay, so only functions or methods part is, okay, so next one, so we can defining methods or functions in our class definition. Okay, so data, what is the syntax for declaring method? Okay, what is the syntax for defining methods? Okay, so data type. Okay, so here return type, data type or return type, method name, parameter list. Parameter list. Okay, so it is the method body. Okay, every method has some data type, some return type. So here I am defining data type, method name, parameter list. For example, int show, int a. Okay, so here I am defining method body. Okay, so here show is method name. So show have integer type, data type. So what are the parameters we have passing? A is the parameter, it is integer type, data type. So in these, after method declaration, we can open the curly brace. Okay, so we can defining the statements within the body, we can close the curly brace. Okay, it is the syntax for defining method names. Okay, so and so on. We have to define number of methods, data type, method name n, parameter list. Okay, so we can open the curly brace. Next in these we can defining body of the method, so we can close the curly brace. Okay, so finally we can close the class body. Okay, it is the syntax for defining class in Java programming. Okay, finally class contains two parts, variables or data. Okay, next one functions or methods. So within the class we can define the variables. Those variables we can call as instance variables. Okay, so after instance variables we want to define the methods. Those methods also we can call as instance methods. So any variables and any methods we can defining within the class. Okay, those variables and methods we can call as instance variables and instance methods. Okay, any variable, any method can be defined within the class. Simply we can say as instance variables and instance methods. Okay, so it is the syntax of class definition. Okay, next one. Okay, so the data are variables. The data are variables. Both are same. Okay, so data or variables, both are same. Okay, so defined within the class called as instance variables. Any variable can be defined within the class can be called as instance variable. What is the difference between local variable and instance variable? Any variable can be defined within the class can be called as instance variable. Any variable can be defined within the method can be called as local variable. Okay, so in class we have to define variables and member functions. Okay, so in a class we can define data or variables. We can call as instance variables. Okay, the code is present within the methods. The code is present within the method. So within the body, so we have to define a code. Okay, that is called method declaration. Okay, so collection of methods and variables defined within a class are called members of a class. Okay, so simply we have to define. Okay, so we have to define variables and methods within the class. Okay, simply we can call as members of a class. Okay, members of a class is nothing but variables and methods. Okay, within the class we have to define variables and member functions. Okay, so in these two parts simply we can call as members of a class. Okay, next one, variable declaration. Okay, so data is encapsulated in a class by placing with data fields. Okay, so we can define the variables. Okay, so inside the body of the class we can define variables in our Java programming. Okay, so these variables are also called as instance variables. Okay, so instance variables means any variable can be defined within the class can be called as instance variables. Okay, so but instance variables are created whenever object of the class is created. Okay, remembering. Okay, so remembering these point, very important point. Instance variables are created whenever object of the class is created. Okay, so what is the syntax for defining? Okay, so variables, here class rectangle. Here class rectangle, class definition starts with class keyword and followed by class name. Here class name is rectangle. Here class name is rectangle. After class definition we can open the curly brace. At the end of the program we can close the curly brace. Okay, so these two are variables. Here length and width, these two are variables. These two are integer type data types. Data type space instance variable 1, data type space instance variable 2. Why I am calling instance variables and instance variables? Okay, so any variables can be defined within the class. Any variables can be defined within the class can be called as instance variables. But instance variables could be loaded into the memory whenever object of the class is created. Otherwise, they contain in the form of bytecode. Okay, so instance variables can be loaded into the memory whenever object of the class is created. Because in Java only main method of the program could be loaded into the memory. So whenever for example we can define main method public static void main. Okay, so after we can defining body of the main method. Only Java execution starts from main method. So before main, okay, so anything we can defining, okay, so those could not be loaded into the memory. So whenever object of the class is created, then only they can load it into the memory. They can start its execution. Okay, otherwise they contain in the form of bytecode only. Okay, so next one. Okay, so variable declaration is completed. Okay, next one, method declarations. Okay, so methods are declared inside the body of the class. Okay, so methods are declared inside body of the class. Okay, after variable declarations, we want to define methods. Those methods we can call as instance variables. So what is the syntax for defining method? So every method has some return type. Okay, so method return type, here parameter list. We can pass any parameters. So it is the method body. Okay, so after variable declarations, we want to define method declarations because our class contains only two parts, data and methods. Okay. Okay, so here method declaration have four basic parts. What they are? Okay, so the name of the method. The name of the method. Okay, so for example, I am taking one method. Okay, so int area. Int area. Okay, so for example, return height into width. Height into width. Okay, so it is the one body. Okay, the method declaration contains four basic parts. First one, name of the method. So in this area is okay, name of the method. Okay, next one is type of variable the method return. So in this area return which type of data value. So in this area return integer type data type. Next, coming to the third point is a list of parameters. A list of parameters. Okay, so in a method, we may pass the parameters, we may not pass the parameters. It is not a mandatory to pass the parameters. Okay, so depending on the situation, so we may pass the parameters, we may not pass the parameters. Okay, it is a option. It is not a mandatory. So we may pass the parameters, we may not pass the parameters. A list of parameters. Next one, body of the method. So what body of the method? Okay, so a simple method contains 4 parts: name of the method, type of the value method return, list of parameters, the body of the method. Okay, next one. Okay, so example. Okay, so here class definition starts with class keyword and followed by sample. Here sample is class name. Okay, so what class contains? Variables and methods. Variables are also known as data members. Okay, methods are also known as member functions. Simply variables and members we can simply call as member functions. Okay, so here I am declaring 3 variables: width, height, depth. These 3 are variables. These 3 are double type data types. These 3 are double type data types. Okay, so variable part is completed. What is the remaining part? Okay, what class contains? Okay, so data and methods. Data and methods. Okay, so data we can also known as variables. Variable part is completed in class definition. So what is the remaining part? Methods. Okay, so here I am defining one method. So volume is the method. So every method contains 4 basic parts. What they are? Name of the method and what method may return. Okay, next one, list of parameters. Okay, a list of parameters. Okay, so here method name is volume. So it returns the double type data type. Next one is body of the method. So it is the body of the method. Return height into width into depth. So we can close the method body. So here we can open the method body. We can close the method body. Next one we can close the class definition. Here we can close the class definition. Okay, this is nothing about class. Okay, simply just you have to remember class is a non-primitive data type and class contains only 2 parts: data and member functions or methods. Okay, data or variables both are same, methods or functions both are same. Okay, what is the syntax for defining class? Okay, so class definition starts with class keyword and followed by class name. So in the class we have to define both variables and methods. So any variables and any methods can be defined within the class can be called as instance variables. Okay, so instance variables could be loaded into the memory whenever object of the class is created. Okay, in a class simply we have to define variables and methods. Okay, so any variables, any methods can be defined within the class can be called as instance variables and instance methods. Okay, after variable declaration we have to define methods. What is the syntax for defining a method? Return type, method name, parameter list. Every method contains 4 parts: name of the method. So what is the data type that method return? Next one, list of parameters. Next one, body of the method. Okay, so this is about class. Okay, in the next class I will explain object. Okay, so I already explained in the OOPS, whenever I explained in the OOPS concepts, I explained what is object only. So in the next class I will explain briefly what is object. Okay, so how to create object in Java. So why do we need object in Java? So in next classes I will explain briefly. Okay, thank you.